Today I've got another game for you in the Tier 7 British battleship HMS Hawk. I'll put my commander build on the screen here. You can see it's John Fisher, the new event commander, who is excellent for these British battle cruisers. But I want to talk to you today not so much about this ship, but about broader tactics in general, specifically the tactic of kiting in a battleship and more generally playing conservatively in a battleship. And the reason that I want to talk to you about this is because I've got some friends in the community and I can see the posts that people make on various forums. Over the past couple of days, I've noticed a number of people saying that playing conservatively or kiting in a battleship somehow constitutes, quote, bad play, or if you engage in running away while you're playing a battleship, you are somehow, quote, a pussy. Forgive my language there, but that's the kind of intellectual prowess that these tactical geniuses demonstrate when they say this kind of nonsense, okay? Sorry if I sound a little bit angry at it, but my feathers get a little bit ruffled when people are trying to make an argument about how you should play this game, and the form of that argument is name calling. That is intellectual nonsense. That's intellectual nihilism. It's not an argument. It's throwing insults around. And anybody who engages in that kind of behavior is engaging in toxicity. They should not be taken seriously, and they have no argument to present. I, however, have an argument to present you. Take a look at the map. We took our first shot at a bow-tanking Jean Bar, lit him on fire once, followed up with another salvo. He's on perma-fire. But his teammates, the Odin and the two other battleships to his left, are all coming over to this flank. That's 4 out of 5 of the enemy battleships, all coming over here to this flank, leaving only one battleship on the opposite flank with a destroyer who's spotted by our CV and a cruiser who's hiding behind an island. They're going to square off against our CV, 2 of our battleships, a cruiser, and one of our destroyers. So they're outnumbered, and they're all going to sink in short order while the 4 enemy battleships come over here. And I don't know why they're doing this. It could be because the Hawk is a new ship, and they see a new ship, so they think, ooh, I want to shoot at it. Or maybe they see my name, and they're like, ah, Xarkun, I recognize him from YouTube, so we've got to sink him. Or perhaps it's the CC camo I'm wearing. Who knows? But in any case, 4 out of 5 of the enemy battleships are coming over to this flank. And so when we're evaluating this in HMS Hawk, we're thinking to ourselves, well, we definitely cannot push in this situation. And this is, of course, a matter of simple arithmetic. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 battleships directly in front of us. There's probably a destroyer out there too, judging by the torpedoes. We are 1 battleship. There is a friendly battleship off to the right, unseen on the screen, but he has yet to discover angling, I think, and he's got basically no health left. They're going to end up taking him out. So essentially, it would be me and the Jervis, which they cannot see, so therefore they will not shoot it. It would just be me pushing into them. I would be the only one that they could see, and therefore the only one they could shoot. And partially because the Hawk has no armor, we would go down very quickly. But really, in this kind of situation, I could be in Iowa, like the guy in front of me, for example, and I could push bow into all 4 of these guys and also sink. It's just a matter of simple arithmetic. If you, as a single ship, push into 4 enemy ships, the likelihood that you're going to sink is almost 100%, unless the enemy ships decide to play extremely poorly and want to give you free broadside or something. But simple arithmetic. 4 is greater than 1, so you don't push into 4 when you are 1. Instead, what you do is you point your bow away from them, and you get a kiting position. And while they push into you, you run away from them, you increase the distance. Ideally, you stay outside of your concealment range, which on the Hawk with my commander build in the concealment mod is an astounding 12 kilometers, extremely valuable and stealthy for a battleship. So what we're going to do is attempt to kite the enemy ships as they play this flank, because you can see on the other side of the map that only the red cruiser is left over there, and there's a path for my destroyer, battleship, and cruiser to the enemy base. They can now push into it while only having to deal with that cruiser, because the entire enemy battleship fleet is over here trying to deal with me and the Iowa. And they've dispatched the Iowa, but it's not the most useful thing in the world. In fact, taking all 4 of your battleships and putting them into the same grid square as these guys have done is just about the most useless thing you could possibly do with your battleship. There are far too many players that like to get into divisions, or maybe they just meet random battleships on the high seas and they get into the same grid square and push in together. This is not a strategy. The entire value of the battleship is that it has the ability to shoot all the way across the map with the biggest guns in the game and potentially dev strike things in a single salvo. So the goal in a battleship is always to find a place on the map where the enemy team has to push past your guns in order to achieve some goal. That goal could be taking a capture circle, it could be pursuing one of your teammates or trying to get control of a flank. Doesn't matter. Some goal, you find a place on the map where the enemy team has to push past your guns and give them broadside in order to reach the goal, and then you delete them. That is how a battleship acquires map control, and it requires looking at both the positioning of the enemy team on the map and the positioning of your own team. You never want to be in the same grid square as one of your battleships. Now, of course, we weren't able to develop a crossfire in tandem with any of our battleship teammates, almost all of whom are now sunk, except for the guy on the other side of the map, who, for whatever reason, is also not long for this world. But because the enemy team took 4 of their battleships and brought them over to my flank, well, the other flank collapsed, and my team is heading toward their base. Only now do they realize that their positioning and their choices in this game were poor. They've turned back to go defend their base, and I've been able to run away from them while losing about half of my HP and racking up nearly 100,000 damage. And at this point, now that I see they're turning back toward their base in an attempt to defend it, now I can push forward because I have the advantage. They're going to be pushing from that direction toward their base. They're going to be pointing their bows at the rest of my team, and as a consequence, they are most likely going to be giving broadside to the section of the map that I occupy. That is the number one thought you should have in your head while playing any battleship. Where can I put the ship on the map in order to get broadsides? Pushing straight in without any thought is not a good strategy. Doesn't even matter if you're in something like, say, the Veneto or the Odin. Certainly, they can push in. In fact, that's what they're good for. They're good for brawling because of their heavy armor, their secondaries, their hard-hitting guns. They are good brawlers. The Hawk and some other battleships are not. They're more like long-range snipers or support vessels. But even so, kiting can be of value in things like the Odin or the Veneto. You can't always push in. If you push into superior numbers, you will likely perish. But even though there were superior numbers on this flank, again, there is an ebb and flow to this game, and there are times when you can push in, times when you absolutely can't. Earlier, we could not, but now that the enemy team is in pursuit of defending their capture circle from the encroachment of my teammates, well, they're distracted. They're trying to achieve some goal, and we can push in on their broadsides. And, well, as long as we're shooting AP at the broadsides, not HE like we are at the Jean Bar, then we'll be able to deal a lot of damage. This is a very valuable position for us to be in, and the reason that we are able to maintain this position is because we played so conservatively early on. People will probably look at this gameplay and tell you that I've somehow played this incorrectly. Explain to me how it would have been better if I had pushed into these 4 battleships and sunk. Aggression is not the cardinal value in battleships. It can be fun to play them aggressively when you can get into a successful brawl and come out on top, and there are probably certain scenarios where you can do that with HMS Hawk, for example. It does, after all, have torpedoes. But generally speaking, this battleship and any battleship is not going to survive against overwhelming firepower. So there are cases where you need to play conservatively so that when other things in the game develop, like the enemy team going back to defend their base, you're still around to exert influence. Like, we've got this full health Vanguard here, by the way, and all of our battleships have been sunk except for me. The Vanguard is trying to get back to the base. He's taking some fire from one of the cruisers, and he does have a destroyer to worry about. But if I weren't here, he might have a much easier time surviving and exerting an influence on the outcome of this battle. But as it stands, he's chosen to go broadside, perhaps lulled into a false sense of security by all the HE I've been shooting at him, but this time it's the AP, and the Vanguard is one of the most citadelable battleships in the game, of course, takes a citadel. I think that was like a 20k salvo, so he's basically got no HP. The Veneto is on his way back to port. The Odin lost all of his HP early on and so can't do anything. We're of course going to shoot at him and try to take him out, but these guys are going to sink very easily. And now we can push into them while we have the advantage, and they're giving us broadside, and we'll be able to easily clean up this game because we played conservatively. This ties a little bit back into what I was saying last week, which is try participating in battles for the full 15 minutes, because basic logic dictates that if you participate for all 15 minutes versus 5, you have more opportunities to positively impact the outcome of a game. And of course, that is not a hard and fast rule. There are some cases where you could trade your ship favorably and help your team out that way, even if you do sink early on. But what I want to do is elucidate the general principles that you should keep in mind while playing this game. These are principles, not hard and fast rules that you must follow to the letter. This game is too nuanced for that kind of thing, and it presents too many unique situations that have to be dealt with according to the facts on the ground, essentially. But as a principle, there is value in playing conservatively in a battleship and in kiting in a battleship. In fact, kiting is a universal value for all three classes of surface ship in this game. It serves you well in cruisers, destroyers, and battleships. And the reason for that is because if the enemy team is pushing into you, you automatically have an advantage. You are harder to hit while they are easier for you to hit. And if you've got like great HE, for example, like the Hawk, you can just burn them down from concealment while they push in. I have 12-kilometer concealment after all, so as long as I'm 12 kilometers away from the battleships and the CV or a destroyer is not spotting me, then 20 seconds after I fire my guns, I'll go dark. They can't see me, they can't shoot back. Maybe they forget about me for a second and give broadside and I'm able to shoot at them. Or maybe I'm just able to run away if the situation is too hot and reposition myself. That is also a value in a battleship. It's not always the best choice to simply die 5 minutes in the match because you think you got to be an aggressive alpha Chad male and, I don't know, beat the crap out of the red team. It's not going to work out in a lot of cases. There is value to playing conservatively, and anybody who looks at gameplay like this and tells you it's wrong, or tells you that, I don't know, Xarkun is a pussy because he's played the Hawk too conservatively and he's kited too much, well, these people are just telling you in more vulgar terms that they have no idea how this game works. And they're probably the same people that would tell me it's useless to bring the concealment on this ship down to 12 kilometers, and also the same people who like to sit still, bow tanking and shooting at other battleships while they get melted by HE and pelted by torpedoes. They never ask themselves, is their positioning the problem? The answer to that is yes, their positioning is the problem. Think more about your positioning while playing battleships or any ship in this game, and don't be afraid to play conservatively. That's my message for you today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.